This lineup you see on the screen right now is the top projected one for Cowboys Titans on Thursday Night Football. It's a good one to play in cash, but the best way to use it is to find what everybody else is going to be doing tonight to build some lineups for a DraftKings Showdown. Hello, everyone. I am a fucking very hoarse Chris Spags who thought I'd cleared my throat accordingly before the stream. We are live here doing the Thursday Showdown video. Of course, by the end of this video, I will reveal three tips to get unique on this DraftKings Showdown slate with 500K up top. It's going to be a weird one. No Derrick Henry today. Also, a lot of Titans out on defense. I think 4 of their starters are out today, maybe some more by the time game time rolls around. Important thing to keep in mind. But let's get right into it. Let's pull this up on the screen again. No, not that one. We don't want to go full screen. We want to see some of my face, right? I think that's sort of the goal. All right, there we go. So let's go over to the Vegas odds, an important way to look at everything. Of course, the foundation for everything we try to do on these slates. I'm actually going to try to clear my throat real fast. Okay, is that better? I don't even know. Dallas, 12.5-point favorite on the road at Tennessee, 40-point over-under. Was that 39.5 this morning? So it looks like it came up a little bit here. Important thing to keep in mind here, though, the Dallas implied total, 26 implied points for them. Tennessee, 13.5 implied points, one of the lowest totals of the year. So that is going to be a brutal one on paper for them going against the Dallas defense that shut down a lot better teams out there. A shout to the chat as well. Jake here, Steven here, 2 of my guys. Appreciate you guys showing up here. And of course, if you guys are watching live or after the fact, please hit that like button. Help me out here in my Lindsay Lohan heydays as we go through it here. Some of the key projected players here, we're going to try to make this fast, but obviously it's going to be Hassan Haskins Day. You could see him at a $3K salary. DraftKings did the pricing, assuming that Derrick Henry would play. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there who love drafting running backs also drafted Derrick Henry on the assumption he'd be available for you in week 17, but no, it is Hassan Haskins, the rookie. One thing I pointed out in the stats video, of course, where I round up the best data from sites like Football Outsiders, BFF, Sports Info Solutions. I'll link that down in the comments as well if you want to check that out. But basically, Derrick Henry and Hassan Haskins, obviously a much smaller sample size for Haskins. These guys have been a very similar back whenever they have gotten touches on the year. Henry missing tackles at a 19.7% rate, 3.7 yards after contact for Henry. And then on Hassan Haskins' side, he's got an 18.2 avoided tackle rate, 3.3 yards after contact for him per run. Those are important things to keep in mind here because basically, one of the theses of a lot of running backs is that they're replacement level players that, you put a similar guy in, guys will get similar results. With Derrick Henry, the assumption that a lot of people will have tonight is that Haskins can come in and he could certainly have the similar production to Henry, probably not the same ceiling, probably not the same floor. That's how a lot of people will approach tonight's slate against the Dallas defense and on the year, negative 0.117 EPA against the run, 38.4% rushing success rate. Those are pretty bad numbers. So that's, Steven saying that's a Lindsay Lohan voice. No wonder I was having a visceral reaction. Yes, I apologize for all the erections you are getting from the Showdown content today because of how sexy I sound here, I am sure. But anyway, point being, Hassan Haskins is going to come up in every lineup. We're going to show you guys the fantasy cruncher in a little bit here. Basically, it seems like Haskins is going to be in every top projected lineup. Dak Prescott also going to be in every top projected lineup. So one of the pro tips that I would say that I'll reveal at the end, but right now, if you want to try to separate those guys, that's certainly one approach you can make right away to get different from the field because those guys are going to project well with every projection system out there. You can see some of the other plays here. Only 7 guys projected over 10 DK points today. That is not a good DraftKings slate for the most part. It does mean that people will concentrate around these 7 guys. Obviously, the defense as well for the Cowboys, which has been very good, has been a takeaway defense. Certainly a team that's going to be heavily featured tonight, and I would think probably one of the most popular plays in the slate. Best value plays, looks like Malik Davis, the Cowboys' 3rd-string running back, who could see more work if Tony Pollard doesn't go today. Pollard traveled with the team, but he is, in fact, questionable. So that's something that is a very important one. Obviously, more carries for Zeke if we get Pollard out, more touches potentially for Davis, especially if the game gets out of hand. He's an interesting player to go to tonight, especially if you do get Pollard out. Julius Chestnut is the backup running back, or the backup to the backup, the understudy, the assistant manager, the manager. He's Dwight Schrute, basically, of running backs. He is a guy that people liked a lot coming into the season. I did see some very sharp people out there touting Chestnut over Haskins. I was more team Haskins. Unfortunately, didn't advance him in any of my best ball teams that are still alive. But still, Chestnut is a guy that people did like coming into the year. The numbers on him, there really isn't a lot to go off of. With Haskins, at least, we do have some amount of touches, to say that he's been competent this year. And also Henry has spoken glowingly of Haskins, not so of Chestnut, more draft capital invested Haskins' way. Certainly Haskins is the guy that you would expect to have the biggest runway here to get production. That said, Chestnut a live pivot or a guy to actually play with Haskins potentially based on these projections. Racy McMath, another value guy who might come up at $200, but I think Malik Davis will be the cheap guy who comes up a lot. The issue is you're probably not going to get a lot of the $200 guys coming up just because of the fact that you do have Haskins there with a decent projection at a $3K salary. So Haskins is the value play that sort of makes everything work. These $200 guys probably have more value as a result because they're not going to be forced to get jammed in into every single lineup. Brett Maher, also a guy who's going to be very popular today. Cowboys do kick field goals at a league average rate. Tennessee allows field goals a little bit under league average. So as I always say, if the kicker is going to be coming up a lot in top projected lineups, I would start to move away from him. I would think Randy Bullock could be actually an interesting Titan to go to in 5-1 Titans builds, or maybe he kicks 4 field goals today, and that's enough to outscore all the Titans. Something to keep in mind there. When you play the opposite kicker, you do get leverage on the kicker who's going to be more popular. Let's go over to the ownership, though, and talk about this real fast. And, of course, I do recommend everybody out there, as I know we have some guys in the chat who are already Stochastic members or guys who are very active in their community as well. I personally will vouch for Stochastic as being the data source that I rely on the most, that I trust the most, obviously having worked there for years. I know it goes on behind the scenes to justify that faith, but also it's just important to keep in mind that these numbers may change throughout the course of the day. Doing the stream at 11 a.m. on the East Coast, obviously as guys get ruled in, guys get ruled out. There's certainly, if the Vegas total moves, these numbers can change throughout the day, so keep that in mind. They're projecting Dak Prescott to be 70% owned here. I think it could be closer to 80, but we'll see how that goes. I would guess as well he gets a little more captain ownership than people would think here, just because of the fact that I think people will be afraid of the Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard situation, as well as the fact that basically with Dak, like there's one thing you could identify with Tennessee. They've been bad at defending the deep ball downfield on the year, giving up a 0.82 on throws of 20 plus yards, also giving up a 51% completion rate, 15% touchdown rate on deep throws. And Dak's been very good taking advantage of those plays. So I think Dak's certainly going to be overrepresented at captain. You can get there, but I would say if you're playing with captain, try to triple stack him, at least double stack him. Definitely try to get some more parts of that parlay correctly, because he's going to be pretty well represented overall from people just jamming him in as one of the safe plays theoretically to get to a captain. But as we know on showdowns from these videos all season long, or most of the season long, basically, you know, the overowned captain who is a QB always tends to be a bit of a risk unless you are overstacking him. CeeDee Lamb's going to be very popular. 15%. Actually, he's going to be the highest owned captain according to Stochastic. That's kind of crazy. CeeDee Lamb, I think, perfectly fine play. That said, I would worry the Cowboys put the beat down on early, and you don't see enough CeeDee Lamb. All it really takes is one big play to this guy right here, Michael Gallup, who's at 3.6% ownership. You could also have T.Y. Hilton out there, of course, who completed that big 30-yard or third and 33, whatever it was, in that game against Philly. He's a guy who probably gets a little bit steamed up as a result, but we know at least he can catch a deep ball. I would try to target the guys who can get there in 1 or 2 plays, because if Dallas only needs 1 or 2 plays to get there, I think that's a lot of leverage on CeeDee Lamb, who's not going to get the same kind of chunk plays that he gets, the dink and dunk PPR plays that are very favorable for him. The Cowboys don't need to do it. They're not going to do it. Like they don't care about this game either. Like Tennessee doesn't need to win this game. Dallas can win it, but ultimately they want to just keep pace with the Eagles. The Eagles are going to get that bye either way, no matter what happens playing the Saints on Sunday. So I think the Cowboys are aware of that. That's certainly something to keep in mind. This is no money hat. I am literally wearing a money hat, my friend. I might not be able to see it because it's the cream colored one, which weirdly I've started to gravitate towards. But no, of course, my good pal Pody Jen Stoner. I feel like your name's different on Twitter. Either way, though, yes, the money hat is on. It's money time, always here on the Splash Play channel. There's no flipping in the hats here. Malik Willis probably came down a little bit in projection, actually in Stochastic, comparing yesterday's data to today's. Did seem like they knocked down Malik Willis and bumped up Ezekiel Elliott just a little bit there. So that's one of those plays that I think a little bit undervalued for Willis. Certainly can go to Willis instead of Haskins and try to capture Willis being a little more mobile. I've kind of been surprised how little the Titans have run Willis this year, only 3.4 rushes per game. He's a guy that's super mobile. Like he's a guy that can break 50, 60-yard runs if you give him the opportunity or if the play just works out that way. So I think if you are going 5-1 onslaught builds, which are going to be very popular tonight favoring the Cowboys, Malik Willis, targeting him, targeting the pass game, hoping you can do something without them having the Derrick Henry back there to rely on to build the offense around. I got certainly a possibility here. And Malik Willis, one of the best deep ball throwers of the combine, certainly some fungibility there with his accuracy and all of that. On the year, he's had one of the lowest adjusted completion rates, a 66% adjusted completion rate, which is bad, marked as red basically on my sheet. So that's something to keep in mind. He's not an accurate thrower, but the hope is that you can capture that outlier day in a game where Tennessee's just got nothing else to really rely on. Other popular plays, Zeke certainly going to be popular. I think looks good at captain. Tony Pollard, if he plays, fine at captain as well. It's worth pointing out to me, and this is something I was chatting with somebody about, I forget where, but basically, like, my thought would be going into this game, if the Titans D is full health, Titans D has been the best run defense in the league. Again, negative 0.161 EPA, which is a very bad number to go against overall. 34.6% success rate. These are bad numbers. So my thought was that if the Tennessee defense shuts down the traditional run plays, Zeke, then his value comes down. The hope then would be that they pass the ball to Pollard more in the flat to get him out there. Obviously, with Pollard being questionable, having the injuries, maybe not playing, obviously, that would certainly hurt that thesis a little bit, as well as the fact that the Titans are missing 4 key guys. Like, it's like Bud Dupree, it's Simmons, like, it's a bunch of dudes who actually matter to that defense. So the run defense is probably going to come down a little bit. So I don't have an issue going to Zeke today, even though I would have thought coming into yesterday that if the Titans were going to play full strength on defense, they probably would be able to shut Zeke down. I don't think that's the case now. Low on plays, you can start to look at a little bit here. So the guys under 20% cumulative ownership. Let's see that. According to Stochastic, sort it, please. All right. As I mentioned, Randy Bullock, a guy that I would consider here as the pivot to Brett Maher. I think looks pretty good. Treylon Burks, 16% owned. He is certainly a guy that can get there on one big play. And as I've talked about in the past, rookies are rookies. Guys who've been on the second team, guys who all summer long were throwing the ball to each other. We're catching the ball. We're building up that rapport. I think Treylon Burks is a guy at captain I would go to. 1% owned, like, that would be insane. If you got Treylon Burks at 1% owned at captain, 15.5% of utility. I know the price tag is not fantastic, but 5,400, like, Burks can break it open. He can pay off that price tag in literally one play. So I think targeting the pass game a little bit here does have some appeal. As we're going to talk about again, everything is 5-1 Cowboys. Everything is 4-2 Cowboys. So if you do go 3-3 Titans, if you do go 4-2 with the Cowboys having 4 guys, the Titans having 2 guys, you're going to be different enough, I think, to have some upside there. So just one of those things to keep in mind. Jacob Okonkwo, I would point out, definitely came back down to earth with Treylon Burks back in, which was sort of the thesis of what Chig is as a player. He's a guy that really benefited from not having Burks out there. They got 1 target last week. I wouldn't expect him to have a ton of upside. Robert Woods, we know, is a pro, so he could certainly make enough production here to be useful. This is a lot of low ownership on the Titans pass game. And I know, again, Willis has been bad. Like, I like Willis a lot coming into the draft, so I do have some prior biases that are going into this overall. But I would say, just looking at these ownership numbers, looking across the board at these guys who are low owned, like, you could make a pretty credible Titans lineup here with the best plays, or the guys who could be the best plays, with Chestnut, with Burks, with Woods, with Bullock. Like, you have a lot of ways to build lineups with just a couple Titans in there that could have some value. Is it more likely the Cowboys 5-1 it? Absolutely. Is it more likely the Cowboys defense makes it in there? Absolutely. Point of Showdown, though, is to build lineups where nobody else has, to put your Monopoly hotel where nobody's got their blocks. So that's how you win on these slates. That's how people won on Monday's slate as well, where I think it was a 4-2 build, but it was a low-owned, a couple of Colts in there for the 2 part of that. That's how you win showdowns. It's something to keep in mind here that I try to extol a lot on the pre-recorded videos, and I'll try to remember to say here on the live one as well. But let's look at the ownership, the top projected lineups here on Fantasy Cruncher. And as I always talk about, this is what I do for every single slate, including the main slates as well. Important to see how top projected lineups look, because that informs then, obviously, with stochastic data, which I would say is as good as anything out there. But also, these are median projections. These are the best median projections, I think, in the biz. You know, them and ETR right there, 1 and 2, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to say. But overall, you can see sort of how everybody's going to approach this tonight. Hassan Haskins is in every single lineup. So 84% of utility, 16% of captain. Dak Prescott in every lineup as well. 60% of utility, 40% of captain. CeeDee Lamb is in about 92% of lineups, 72% of utility, 20% of captain. Brett Maher even coming up at captain, which kind of surprised me. But you could see basically what this is telling you overall. If you separate right away, again, I don't know this is the most EV move. I certainly would play some lineups and have both guys in. But if you were putting one, I'd say this phrase, pure uncut bullet, where you're trying to make one lineup tonight in hopes of taking down 500K, I would play one of Dak, one of Hassan Haskins. And that's one thing that right away will get you away from a pretty big chunk of the field. I would guess roughly 70% of the field will have both those guys in, maybe 75. So that's just one thing that I would say right away. If you're going to do that, that's the way to try to get different and try to jump the field if one of those guys fails. Let's look at the overall lineup construction. So 21 out of 25 lineups have at least 4 Cowboys. So keep that in mind here. Obviously, that would be about 84%. So that's something that means that basically people will be loading up on Cowboys, which is not a surprise based on the team total. But overall, that's one of those things that right away, again, like doesn't mean you don't play 5-man Cowboys builds. Doesn't mean you don't play 4-man Cowboys builds. But it does mean that overall, the field's going to be well represented there. You're competing against a lot more people. So if you play a 5-man Cowboys stack, lower that salary, play a weird guy at captain, whatever. Same thing for a 4-man Cowboy stack. Going to be the same thing there. That's sort of how that goes. Pious Devil saying, Spags, you're drinking hot lemon tea or a hot toddy during these streams. No, I just have ice cold water here. But I just don't make tea for myself. I used to do that when I was younger. But now it's weird because like I'm doing these streams every day and clearly it's hurting my voice more. It doesn't matter. I just push through. If I cough up some blood during a stream, then it'll only give me some street cred for all you guys out there. As you can see here, though, a little bit of lubrication helps. That's what she said. A 5-man stack for the Titans would be an insane move to go to. That said, nobody will be playing them tonight. So if one comes up in projections, maybe you can get there. I think a 4-man Titan stack, also pretty thin. 3-3 builds, though, I think are live, like based on the low ownership, based on the value, and based on the fact that this is an NFL team who's getting their first real opportunity here. Like, we really don't know what Malik Willis is because of the way that this offense goes. It basically is forced to feed Derrick Henry. So Willis could be like the best passer in the league. He's probably not. But point being, like, we don't really know what he can do because that's not how this offense runs. If they don't treat Haskins as a 1-to-1 replacement for Henry, Willis is probably going to have the most opportunity to be that big play guy, to get the ball downfield, to do some different stuff today. So I think there's some leverage right away going to those 3-3 Titans builds, 4-2 still, but, get unique with it. Besides that, let's go to our randomness crunch here. Willie loves tea. All right, look, if you guys love the tea, I just love to spill the tea with my ladies. the girls group text, gossiping. That's what I know. That's to be clear. I've never spilled tea in my life, other than in Pete's Deposit Kingdom Discord, where I just trash random people sometimes. That's where I spill the tea. Here, though, no tea spilled. All right, let's look at the randomness lineups here. I did the same thing I usually do for my crunch. And actually, since we're live, I'll show you guys the groups as well so you can see what I did here, because I have made some changes on that and I haven't showed these on a pre-recorded video in a while. Same rules as always. I do max 1 kicker, max 1 defense. I don't think it's positive EV to put 2 kickers in a lineup for the most part. Same thing for 2 defenses, especially at a low scoring slate. People just get there a little bit too much, so it kind of decreases the value of that. A minimum 2 pass catchers with Dak if he's a captain. Max 3. Dak is not running enough this year to justify it. Same rules for Malik Willis here, and I also do give a booster to these guys, where basically every pass catcher gets 12% boost if I'm playing Dak in a lineup, and then the receiver, or the running backs rather, get a 4% boost. Same thing for Malik Willis here. You can make the case because both guys are mobile enough that you could theoretically want to just let them play in the flex without forcing a pass catcher in, but I just don't think there's been enough running from Dak this year to expect him to have a 2 rushing touchdown game. So that's why I do force a pass catcher in. As we talk about a lot in these videos, very easy for a pass catcher to pass the QB just because of PPR points on DraftKings, as well as receiver bonuses and all that stuff. Some unique builds here. So you'll note here, this is just a 33% randomness crunch. I would also do a 66 and 99, and then 66 with 2 uniques as well, and then roll them up together, see how many lineups you get out of that. And I also export mine to Excel now, so that's just something I'll say out loud so you guys know I'm not bullshitting you or whatever. But basically, the 3-man stacks to me have the most appeal. I would be curious to see what a 4-man Titans build would look like, but I'm not going to force it here. I don't like to force in builds that aren't coming up for naturally with the projections and the randomness and all that. But let's see some lineups that we think could be good here, and then I'll give you guys the 3 pro tips I'm seeing about how to get different. Who would be a unique captain to go to? I do think Gallup is really interesting to me just because of the fact that he can get there on 1 play. So I would take right away one of these lineups. I wish it weren't Haskins in all of them, because it is a little bit easier for a pass catcher to get there in a 5-1 build. Something to keep in mind there, where this maybe you can't switch to Burks. You're not enough salary to get to Burks. Haskins is also the pass catching back, though. He's been that overall. Willie, I have not seen you in the chat very often, but I appreciate you bringing the heat with the Carmelo Anthony style lessons of life there that we'll never forget, of course. When he was a Baltimore teen, saying that stitches get stitches, and then boy, the white media very mad about that one. Even though that's boys being boys in Baltimore. Haskins, though, is a pass catcher, so I think it's not crazy to have him in a 5-1 build. That said, I'd prefer a 5-1 with Treylon Burks. I prefer a 5-1 with, maybe Robert Woods. So that's something to keep in mind overall. But I think these Gallup lines are all pretty solid. Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Dak, Ezekiel Elliott, Marr. This one without Marr, I probably have a little more appealing. Gallup, Dak, Tony Pollard, Zeke, Schultz. Maybe tough for all these guys to get there, but the assumption really in this lineup is that the Titans are going to be so bad that the Cowboys can just do the bare minimum and get into a winning lineup. So I think that works pretty well overall. Let's see if we can get a Dak captain or a CD captain lineup that looks good. Malik Willis just does not come up. Okay, so is Malik Willis not in a single lineup here? Man, here we go. Here's a 3-3. CeeDee Lamb, Dak, Dalton Schultz. You have Malik Willis, Austin Hooper, Hassan Haskins. Maybe not enough salary left on the table here at 49.5, but still definitely a lineup that I think makes sense overall. You're fading the running backs as well, which gets different right away. And if that defense from Tennessee is as good because of the scheme more than the players in, then you could see Tony Pollard and Zeke not make a winning lineup. I think that's not an insane thing, but certainly a risk there with, again, Titans having 4 starters out on defense, maybe more by the time game time rolls around. Shout out Logical Connoisseurs. Shout out all you guys watching live here. Again, hit that like button if you can. I appreciate it a bunch. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, just looking for showdown content. I'm doing videos 5 days a week. That's not going to stop when the season ends. That it's going to be including playoff stuff coming up here. Of course, best ball, the second that's available, playoff best ball. It's all going to be here on the Splash Play channel. So please subscribe, hit the like button, do all that stuff. This one here I like. CeeDee Lamb, Dak, Ezekiel Elliott, Cowboys D, Randy Bullock, Hassan Haskins. Theoretically, the kicker and the running back do kind of pull from each other. But if I'm going to assume Haskins can get some pass game work and get some check downs, if they don't want to let Malik Willis run just to risk not hurting him, obviously you want to keep him healthy with Tannehill likely out the rest of the year. That's certainly a possibility that you could see more check downs to Haskins. And normally mobile QBs do pull from the pass catching running backs just because of the fact that they'd rather run for 3 yards rather than throw a little pass for 3 yards. So that's sort of how that goes naturally. For Haskins, though, I think it makes sense that he can get there in a variety of ways, so I'm willing to go there. Don't love Chig lineups, though. Maybe the fact that a lot of people will probably have sharpened up to the Chig, Treylon Burks negative correlation thing could be there. I just want to see a good Treylon Burks lineup, honestly. And it just doesn't come up. This one I don't mind. CeeDee Lamb at captain, Dak, Malik Willis, Treylon Burks, Brett Maher, Hassan Haskins. You're leaving $1,100 on the table. That looks pretty good. Overall, you're also capturing more of a pass game here. 3-3 builds going to be underrepresented. I personally, and I never love 3-3 builds. I'm probably going to go a little heavier on 3-3s than I normally would tonight, just because I don't think people will view the Titans as being able to get 3 guys into a winning lineup. And I think they can. And again, this might be my priors, might be my biases. I loved Burks, loved Haskins, loved Willis. I loved all these guys in best ball, loved them in the draft to varying degrees as well. So these are guys that I think are good and good enough to have production here, especially if the Cowboys, again, they're not going to try that hard today, because they're gigantic favorites. They don't really need this game. They should be able to win it even if they don't try very hard. So they got to offer some opportunity here for the Titans and just trying to assume the game stays competitive and give some upside. And if the game does stay competitive, I think that also adds value to having CD at captain, because I just don't think he's the guy in a 5-1 build who gets there in captain. But I think a game that goes into the fourth quarter being close, being within a touchdown, that's where CeeDee Lamb can start to tap that ceiling a little bit more and can get there. Let's see, who else is other? Any requests at captain? How does Chestnut look is what Lunchable Connoisseur is asking. Let's see. Projection wise, he looks just as good as Haskins. I don't know that I buy that quite as much, to be honest. But I do think he certainly looks pretty good relative to the projection. Again, Stochastic had him a little bit over 6. They have Haskins over 10. I think that's about right. But obviously, that's a pretty narrow margin for a guy who's cheap as well. So I think going to Chestnut over Haskins in some lineups makes sense. That said, more draft capital to Haskins invested. Obviously, they want to see what they have in case, maybe they have to move on from Derrick Henry in the offseason. Derrick Henry's old. Derrick Henry's had a lot of volume the last few years. His hip is banged up. You don't want to see that from your star running back. So certainly, they could certainly take a look at both guys and see how it goes. Chestnut in these lineups. I do like ones with Chestnut and Haskins, just the assumption that the Titans are let's run out the clock on this one. This game doesn't matter. We don't want to injure Malik Willis, whatever the case may be. Those are things that certainly can add some value to Haskins and Chestnut together. Obviously a negative correlation, but still these guys are so cheap. It just doesn't matter. Like this, they should not be priced at this level for what this slate is and what the slate ended up being. Obviously when DraftKings made the pricing, they thought Henry was going to go. So the pricing made sense. Now though, it doesn't. And like, you can absolutely see both these guys get there and also be great leverage on the kicker. Like I'd rather have a running back getting 10 to 15 touches than have a kicker who might not kick a single field goal in this game. That is something to keep in mind for me as well. Single chestnut here with Brett Maher. A 5-1 with Chestnut, I think will be pretty unique. He's not going to be that highly owned. That looks pretty good. Ooh, Haskins at captain with Chestnut as well. 45.9 salary. If you're going to play a 4-2 Cowboys build, this one is pretty unique. You can hear the excitement in my Lindsay Lohan voice right now. I like that build a lot. I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty fun to go to. I'll play some Haskins at captain tonight. Like I really wish I had him in best ball. I trust him so fucking much to not get one team across. Hurts me deep inside and not have Haskins exposure there. That looks pretty good. Willie Kasich, a low scoring game script. That's probably a Cowboys captain one. So this one here, Cowboys D, this is too highly owned. Anything with Cowboys captain that's over 49,000, probably going to be duped. And I try to avoid dupes if I can. And really the main thing for me, like I don't care about ownership product that much and all those things. What I really care about is like, what are the three levers that everybody's going to be doing on a slate? Right now, that's going to be playing Haskins and Dak. That's going to be playing a lot of Cowboys. And that's going to be playing Brett Maher from what I'm seeing. So it seems like this one does not have Maher in it. So I might be a little more inclined to get there. But overall, I think this lineup does work. Let's see if we get a cheaper one. Oh, this one's interesting. 47-1 does have all the chalky plays, including Cowboys captain, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, Brett Maher, Hassan Haskins, who are leaving a lot of money on the table. Boy, man, there's a lot of 5-1s you can get to that leave money on the table and still look pretty good. It's interesting. I would say, though, for sure, like these are well-projected lineups that have the Cowboys at captain. Am I sorting my projection? Yeah, these are good projected lineups. I would not have an issue playing Cowboys at captain if you are going to leave a lot of salary on the table. And these lineups actually like are credible lineups that still leave a ton of money on the table. So great day to leave money on the table, I think, seems like what I'm seeing here. Zeke captain is what Steven's leaning towards. So I love Steven. So let's get into it with Zeke at captain then. This is... This one's probably a little too highly owned. It's just important to keep in mind the Haskins stuff as it relates to the salary. Because Haskins is so cheap, people will probably be willing to leave more salary on the table than usual because, like, how do you upgrade this lineup from here? I guess you could go to Noah Brown. That's not really an upgrade over Brett Maher. You go to Gallup over Schultz, and then you're leaving less money on the table. But I think it's important to keep in mind that there's probably a lot more people than usual leaving $1,000, leaving $1,200 on the table in the slate. So that certainly can make some value to going even lower today, going to 46, going to 45. Like there have been showdown winning lineups at 45.5 salaries. I think there was one a couple weeks ago at 44. So like, be really willing to leave money on the table. Like I wouldn't set like, oh, only play lineups over, that are under $46,000. But playing a few, I think is a very wise move overall. This one is okay. Zeke, Dak, Tony Pollard, Dalton Schultz, Brett Maher, Hassan Haskins. This is basically, there used to be, and I could say this on a live stream because we're now about a half an hour in. There used to be this expression about Milton Berle, where a famous comedian from the 20s. So this is like this is a boomer reference that even predates my birth. But basically Milton Berle, the thing about him was that he had an enormous penis. And with the other comics, they would, I guess, have dick measuring contests, quite literally. So they would do that. And basically Milton Berle, the joke was that he would pull out just enough to win. That's sort of what this game is for the Cowboys. I think Bill Simmons used to make this joke a lot. So that's probably why it's stuck in my head. Basically, the Cowboys are going to do enough just to win. They're going to be doing a Milton Berle game today. So I think that's something here where, really going lower on salary, playing with some running backs, not playing any pass catchers besides the tight end. That all makes sense to me. It's just a game where you can get away with a lot more ugly builds than usual and just feel pretty okay about it. Alan asking the odds the Cowboys sit Dak in the fourth quarter. If you're asking that because you want to play Cooper Rush, I don't think high enough for that. I still wouldn't play Cooper Rush. What I would do instead is not play Dak at all. And you're getting different from enough the field. Again, it's going to be like 70 to 80% ownership for Dak. So that's something there where you just don't play Dak and then you're getting different enough and you don't have to force in a Cooper Rush. And you have enough cheap guys here that you don't have to do that anyway. So if anybody out there's thinking like along that line, I would not play Cooper Rush today. I don't think it gets that bad. And also, like, I think it's possible the Titans D is feisty enough to keep the game like within 10. And that would certainly mean that Dak would probably stay out there, even though, again, the Cowboys don't really need the game technically, but they still can, the NFL teams are weird. Like, basically, the Titans aren't playing this game because for them, the winner you're in week 18 is the only thing that matters. The Jags, though, are playing their week 17 game because they have like a 2% chance to make the playoffs if everything goes weirdly and somehow they can get there. So I would say, don't try to worry about the Cowboys' motivation too much and expect that they're just going to basically pull the guys at halftime because, like, theoretically, they could still make the bye if the Eagles were to lose out, and you don't want to pull your guys early in a game where it's competitive if the Eagles can still lose out basically and not get that bye. Steven doesn't think that Pollard plays, so Zeke is going to get more owned, have to get different elsewhere. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think it's possible that Pollard doesn't play. It probably just depends on the injury. Like, I don't know enough about it right now. Obviously, that's where the inactives is going to be very important to watch coming up later today. As a result, though, you probably are going to see a lot of Malik Davis ownership, I would think, from people who think he'll be the pass catching option. So a little bit of variability here that I can't quite cover right now. Malik Davis captain too thin. Malik Willis captain's not too thin. Actually, I'll pull that up. A Malik Davis captain is absolutely too thin. I would not play that at all. I think that'd be a bad move. Okay. So we don't actually get any Malik Willis captain coming up here, which that's surprising. I think Malik Willis is a little bit undervalued as captain based on what I'm seeing here. Malik Davis, I would say appropriately valued as captain, in as much as I probably wouldn't play him at all. But Malik Willis, I think he's a good captain option. Like, if he's not coming up in all his projections and we know we can run, we know we can get the ball downfield, we know there's some ways for him to actually correlate with other guys where if Willis gets there at captain, you probably do also see Haskins get there. You probably also see one of Burks or Woods get there. I guess Chig as well. You can lump into that group. But I think Malik Willis captain would have some appeal to me. And then, yeah, Randy Bullock, I think a little bit of a hidden gem here. I don't mind Bullock as being the lone Titan and 5-1 builds. I think that's a pretty good thing to go to overall. I think Bullock, certainly low total here, but if he kicks 4 field goals, he can make that optimal lineup over all the other Titans, and it wouldn't be a shocker either. So let's close it out here. My 3 pro tips. I'm going to try to think these through on the fly here. A little easier to do to think them through in a pre-recorded video. So number 1, first, I'll go full camera for me. First pro tip to get unique on tonight's slate would be separate Dak and Hassan Haskins. So if you play a lineup with only one of those guys, you're going to get different from a lot of the field right away. If one of those guys busts or doesn't have enough to make the optimal lineup, you can then jump them quite a bit. With Dak, obviously, there's an obvious way that you could sort of say he doesn't get there, which is that CeeDee Lamb outscores him, Gallup outscores him, the running backs outscore him. A lot of ways for Dak to not really get there, even though it is more likely that he ends up in an optimal lineup. So I would say, number 1, separating Hassan Haskins and Dak. And Haskins, we also talked about the pivots there. Chestnut can get there. Malik Willis can get there over him. There's a lot of ways that he could not make a lineup, even though he's a tremendous value play who, again, probably optimal a lot more often than not when you're running simulations. A second pro tip, I think be careful about the Brett Maher ownership. I think he's going to get into a line of lineups here. He projects well, low scoring total. You'll love jamming defenses and kickers in when you do have that low total. So I think going away from Maher or going to Randy Bullock, if you want to really try to get leverage, that's what I would try to do overall. Maher can make it, but be mindful if you're playing Maher, you're probably running into a lot more ownership than you would want at captain. And then my third pro tip overall would be, embrace the Titans, I guess would be my third pro tip here. I think just being willing to play more Titans and hope that these guys who all have some degree of pedigree, like Haskins was a good running back in college. He's shown enough in the pros to have me think that he could be a good pro. Same thing for Malik Willis. He played at Liberty, so that was sort of a tough haul for him to come into the NFL. Very mobile though, and had the best arm in the draft. So he is certainly a guy that has a pedigree too. Same thing for Treylon Burks, one of the best rookies in the draft in terms of beating press coverage. So he's a guy that certainly can make a play against Diggs or whoever else is out there for the Cowboys. So I think really embracing those 3 guys in particular, but any Titans you can get to. Robert Woods is a pro. He runs good routes. Play some more Titans that people are going to be comfortable with. And that's certainly something that'll help you get different. And then how's Schultz looking? Numerically, he's going against the Tennessee D. That's 25th against tight ends. So that's not bad. Schultz to me is a guy that I kind of hate whenever he comes up a lot in projections. Seems like overall in the top projected lineups, he is coming up only 20% of the time. So yeah, I don't mind Schultz here. I think CeeDee Lamb will be much more represented, but in this kind of game script, certainly possible that Schultz has more upside just if they get scores early. If Schultz picks up the touchdowns, then you see CeeDee Lamb do less, and obviously they're going to rely on the run game more. So I think Schultz a perfectly cromulent play to go to tonight if you want to do that way. All right, guys, so that's all I have for right now. I'm going to go back in the lab. I'll be back tomorrow. I think Pete is still doing just a limited amount of shows, so it'll be just me tomorrow. Of course, I'll check in with girl Pete, see how she's doing as well, talk about week 17, talk about all the best plays, and give my ride or die picks. So come back for that one tomorrow. But I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me. Of course, if you are new around here, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment down below. Any other questions you have about Showdown, any thoughts you have, drop it in there. I'll make sure to reply, of course, throughout the course of the day. But I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me as always here. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow this show at Splash Play Pod. And I'll be back with you guys again very soon. So enjoy your nights. And of course, good luck. There we go.